So in this video we will see about cardiac cycle in detail. Before that, in previous shorts we saw about structure of heart, that is anatomy, which is given in your NCERT textbook, and also about the conducting system of heart, that is the SA node, AV node and all the fibers. So in this video we will see about cardiac cycle, and also another shot we saw about the direction of blood flow, like how it flows through your heart. Impure blood from the vena cava to your right atrium, then right ventricle, then it goes through pulmonary artery to lungs. From there oxygenated blood enters through pulmonary vein to your left atrium, then from there to your left ventricle, and from your left ventricle to all parts of the body through aorta. Pure blood goes there. So the purification of the blood happens in your lungs. So all your heart does is get impure blood from throughout the body, then pump pure blood throughout your body. Okay, in between it exchanges to lungs to for purification of the blood. So let us see in detail about cardiac cycle. Cardiac cycle helps you in understanding the sequence of events which happens in this flow of blood. Okay, so in how does the heart function? To know that, we need to know about the cardiac cycle. To begin with, all the four chambers of the heart are in relaxed state. See, everything what we are telling happens less than a second. Only 0.8 second is needed for one cycle. So whatever the steps I am telling happens so quickly and also overlaps with one another. Here we are slowly explaining so that you should understand. So the chambers of the heart are in a relaxed state. Okay, before that, two terms you understand. Systole means contracted state. Contraction means, you know, right, a tight state. So in diastole is the relaxed state. Systole and diastole. You have atrium, you have ventricle. So you have to remember, atrium will also undergo systole, contracted state, diastole, that is relaxed state. Ventricle will also undergo systole and ventricle will also undergo diastole. Whenever you squeeze something in systole, what can you imagine? Imagine a ball is filled with water. What will happen if you squeeze it? The water comes out. So during the systole phase, if atrium systole is happening, then atrial systole means blood is pushed out of atrium, right? Atrium ventricular systole means the blood is pushed out of ventricle. In diastole relaxed state, it receives blood. Whatever comes, it will receive. So this is the basic of systole and diastole. In systole, it pushes out blood, and in diastole, it receives blood. So let us move to the details. Okay. First, let us imagine they are in a joint diastole. That is, both the atrium and the ventricle are relaxed. In this stage, as the tricuspid and the bicuspid valves are open. So the tricuspid valve lies between your right atrium and right ventricle. Bicuspid valve lies between your left atrium and left ventricle. The specialty of the valve is it prevents backward flow of blood. Okay, only from atrium to ventricle it will allow. There is no backward flow. Hence the name valve is given here. So all this I have explained in a previous short video. I'll give the link in the description. Watch it for more clarity. So let us move to the part of cardiac cycle. So in this stage, okay, when both the valves are open, blood from the pulmonary veins and vena cava flow into the left and right ventricle respectively through the left and the right atria. So what they tell is, when your valves are open in joint diastole, as I said, diastole is relaxed state, it receives blood. In systole contracted state, it pushes out blood. In diastole, it receives blood. So in diastole, when the valves are open, blood from vena cava enters the ventricle through atrium, and blood from the veins, pulmonary veins also enters the ventricle through atrium, since the valves are open. Now, the semilunar valves are closed at this stage. Where are the semilunar valves? See, this pulmonary artery and aorta are protected by semilunar valves. This part which I am highlighting, they are closed at this stage. So there is no entry of blood to the pulmonary artery and aorta. So that you remember. The semilunar valves are closed at joint diastole stage. The sinoatrial node, that is SAN, which is known as the pacemaker of heart, it generates electric potential. By nature, without any external stimuli, they can generate electricity, that is electric stimuli, to stimulate the heart. Okay, the SAN now generates an action potential which stimulates both the atria to undergo a simultaneous contraction. This SAN now pushes, so they have explained in diagram what I said now. In joint diastole, blood from vena cava and blood from the pulmonary veins enters the ventricle, so it is now full of blood. The valves are open, so it enters without any problem, but there is no backward flow of blood because the semilunar valves are closed. The semilunar valves are closed, so there is no backward flow of water. Now when SAN, that is the sinoatrial node, generates action potential, what is expected? The atrium will undergo contraction. Atrial systole happens. Both the atrium simultaneously undergoes contraction. So when they contract, even the remaining blood, what is present inside the atrium, will be pushed into the ventricle. So it is full of blood. Ventricles are full of blood because the atriums are pushing, contracting and pushing the blood out to the ventricle. Undergoes simultaneous contraction, the atrial systole. This increases the flow of blood into the ventricles by about 30% because the atrium is pushing, it is not acting passively, it is pushing the blood by contraction. The action potential is conducted to the ventricular side by AV node and AV bundle, from where the bundle of His transmits it to the entire ventricular musculature. Now what I said, SAN node, then you have AV node. Okay, I'll mark it in yellow so you'll know the difference. AV node, then you have bundle of His, then you have the Purkinje fibers which branches throughout the ventricle. This is your conducting system of heart. Again, it has been explained in another short video by myself. I'm also attaching the link to that in the description. It will be easier to understand after watching that. So the conducting system includes sinoatrial node, AV node, bundle of His and the Purkinje fibers. The main function of these fibers is to conduct the action potential which is generated in the SA node throughout your heart. SA node, when it starts initially, it is enough to contract the atrium. Now it transmits its electricity, the action potential, to AV node, right? With the help of AV node and these fibers, the ventricle undergoes contraction. Okay, the contraction is being transmitted to ventricle. Ventricular systole happens. Now, when ventricle pushes itself, what will happen? The blood obviously has to come out. The blood in the right ventricle has to come out. The blood in the left ventricle has to come out. When it comes out, the valves which we saw earlier, the right, that is the tricuspid valve and the bicuspid valve, right, mitral valve, both will get closed because they does not allow backward flow. Backward flow is not allowed by these valves. Instead, the semilunar valves will get opened. That is the main purpose of the valves, right? So the backward flow is prevented. So blood will not flow to the atrium because of the closure of these valves. Only the semilunar valves will open, and through the semilunar valves, the deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle goes to pulmonary artery to lungs for purification, and oxygenated blood which is collected here in the right ventricle moves through the semilunar valves to aorta to be distributed through the body. So this is what happens in your ventricular systole. This causes the ventricular muscles to contract. Ventricular systole happens. The atria undergoes relaxation. Now the atria has to undergo relaxation, right? Because no blood is inside. No one is there to push it. No action potential. Action potential has transmitted downwards. So no potential there. Now atria will be relaxed. As you could see in this picture, atrium is relaxed. Atrial diastole. So when the ventricular systole happens, atrium diastole happens. Both will coincide. That is what they are telling here. Ventricular systole increases the ventricular pressure, causing the closure of. Now they are giving whatever I told you now. Okay, ventricular systole and increases the ventricular pressure, causing the closure of tricuspid and what is the other valve? Bicuspid valve, due to attempted backflow of blood into the atria. So the closure of these valves will prevent any backflow. They will not allow any backflow of blood. As the ventricular pressure increases further, the semilunar valves guarding the pulmonary artery right side and the aorta left side are forced to open. The pulmonary valves are opening and blood flows through them. The ventricles now relax. Once they have contracted and pushed all the blood outside, now what is their purpose? To relax, because they have no pressure, no blood is incoming because of the closure of these valves. They have pushed out all the blood what they are having. Now they will relax, which is ventricular diastole. They will relax now. Okay, ventricular diastole, and the ventricular pressure falls because of the closure of semilunar valves, which prevents the backflow of blood into the ventricles. Once they have pushed everything outside, now the semilunar valves will also close, because any valve, this valve will also not allow backward flow of blood. So the blood which has once entered pulmonary artery and aorta will not come out again. So the valves are closed here and the ventricles relax. Pressure also falls. Okay, as the ventricular pressure declines further, now the ventricle is completely relaxed and there is no blood inside. Okay, what is the next work? Again, the atrium has to push blood inside. So again, the valves here, that is the tricuspid and the bicuspid valve will open and the atrium will push blood again inside. That is what will happen. As the ventricular pressure declines further, the tricuspid and the bicuspid valves are pushed open by the pressure in the atria exerted by the blood which was being emptied into them by the veins. Because constantly from here there are no valves, right? From the inferior vena cava and superior vena cava and from the pulmonary veins there is incoming blood always. So the atrium now will get enough blood to push the valves open and ventricle will receive blood again. So this is one cycle. The blood now once again moves freely into the ventricles. The first step what we saw in the joint diastole, that is both are in a relaxed state. When blood from the inferior vena cava, superior vena cava and blood from the pulmonary veins enters the ventricles without any obstruction, the joint diastole what we saw earlier. Now again you are going to reach that stage. The blood now once again moves freely to the ventricle. The ventricles in the atria are now again in a joint diastole state. Soon now again SAN node generates an action potential. What will happen if the SAN node generates atrial systole? After atrial systole, the blood will be pushed again to the remaining blood will be pushed by force into ventricles and the same process will repeat. Atrial systole, then ventricular systole, and ventricular systole will coincide with your atrial diastole. So then ventricle will also get relaxed and ventricular diastole. So again joint diastole and everything happens again. Soon the SA node generates and events described above are repeated in the sequence and the process continues. Now how long will it take? As long as you are alive. Okay, the heart beats and beats without any kind of response from your side. It is an autonomous process. Okay, no external stimuli, heart is beating. Heart beat rate is 72 beats per minute. For every minute, 72 beats is an average heart rate. It may be more, it may be less for individuals. So this means one cardiac cycle will take approximately 0.8 seconds. So if it is 72 beats per minute, it means that for every 0.8 second, one cycle will happen. Whatever we described now, from the joint diastole to the joint diastole phase will happen in 0.8 second. Okay, now some max. They are telling 70 ml every time the ventricle, when it is pumping, in every ventricle diastole or ventricle systole, 70 ml of blood is pumped out. So it is known as stroke volume of your heart. So stroke volume into heart rate gives you the cardiac output. This is a formula to remember. It will follow you if you enter MBBS, if you enter BDS or any medical allied courses. This will follow you in the human physiology for your first year. Even after that also it will follow you. So remember, stroke volume plus heart rate, multiplied by heart rate will give you cardiac output. Stroke volume is 70 ml per stroke. Heart rate is 72 beats per minute. So if they multiply both, you will get cardiac output in a minute. In a minute, it is found out that average 5000 milliliters. that is 5 liters of blood, 5000 ml, which is 5 liters. Okay, 5 liters of blood is being recycled. So this is your volume of the blood. This is a normal 5 liters is the normal human volume of blood. For every minute your heart is recycling the whole volume of your body. Okay, so that is the beauty of cardiac cycle. So whatever I have explained, they have given in text here. So as mentioned, heart beats 72 times per minute. That is that many cardiac cycles are performed per minute. It could be deduced that the cardiac cycle is 0.8 seconds. During a cardiac cycle, each ventricle pumps out approximately 70 ml of blood, which is called the stroke volume. The stroke volume multiplied by the heart rate will give you the cardiac output. Therefore, the cardiac output can be defined as the volume of blood pumped out by each ventricle per minute. Okay, which is the average of 5000 ml or 5 liters in a healthy individual. Now, your heart has the ability to alter. If it needs more cardiac output, it will alter your heart rate, so that stroke volume will also can be altered, so that your cardiac output will be much more when needed. For example, in an athlete, it may be needed more, right? They are exerting themselves for a short period of time, so the cardiac output will increase for that particular time. Now, during each cardiac cycle, you have two sounds, cardiac sounds, lub and tub. Okay, lub sound is heard. This is what you heard during your when you auscultate with your stethoscope. Lub is during your closure of tricuspid and bicuspid valves. We saw right in the cardiac cycle, in your ventricular systole, the tricuspid and the bicuspid valves close. In your other phase, the pulmonary valves and the aortic valves close. So dub is heard during the closure of these two valves. Lub is heard during the closure of tricuspid and bicuspid valves. So these two are together known as semilunar valves, right? So these sounds are all clinical significance. The difference in these sound or murmur between these two sounds may signify some anomaly, some problem in your heart. So it is of diagnostic significance. These two are normal heart sounds. Now ECG, I think we need to go to the next video. You need some break, right? In the next video we'll see about ECG.